Soccer star marries obese woman for a bet. Her secret changes his world. The wedding was nothing short of a spectacle. Lavish floral arrangements adorned every corner of the grand hall, and the scent of roses and jasmine filled the air. Guests in designer outfits sipped champagne, their conversations buzzing with excitement and a tinge of disbelief. At the center of it all stood Adrian Bennett, the nation's most celebrated soccer star, dressed in an impeccably tailored tuxedo. His chiseled features and confident demeanor were the envy of every man in the room and the object of admiration for the women. But all eyes eventually turned to the bride, Emma Carter. Emma, in her voluminous white gown, walked down the aisle with her head held high. Her gown sparkled under the warm light of the chandeliers, but what truly captivated the room was her calm confidence. She wasn't the kind of bride anyone had expected for Adrian. She wasn't the glamorous supermodel or socialite everyone assumed he'd marry. Emma was different. She was an average woman, fuller-figured, with a gentle yet commanding presence. Whispers rippled through the crowd as she passed, but Emma kept her gaze forward. Her best friend, Lily, whispered under her breath, "You've got this. Just remember why you're doing this." Emma nodded subtly, her face betraying none of the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. She reached the altar and took Adrian's hand. His charming smile met hers, though it was more practiced than heartfelt. Cameras clicked in rapid succession, capturing the moment for the tabloids that would undoubtedly analyze every detail by morning. "Do you, Adrian Bennett, take Emma Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant began. Adrian hesitated for the briefest moment, glancing at the crowd. He felt the weight of their judgment, their silent questions. Then, with the same charisma he displayed on the soccer field, he replied, "I do." "And do you, Emma Carter, take Adrian Bennett to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Emma's voice was steady. "I do." As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Adrian leaned in to kiss her, a quick, obligatory peck that earned polite applause. To the world, they looked like a fairy tale couple. But beneath the surface, their story was far from magical. The truth was, Adrian hadn't married Emma out of love. Far from it. The wedding had been the result of a cruel bet, a drunken dare made by his teammates after a particularly wild victory party. They'd mocked him, claiming he could never charm a woman like Emma into falling for him. "She's not your type," one of them had laughed, slapping him on the back. "I bet you wouldn't last a month pretending to love someone like her." Adrian, competitive to a fault and unable to resist a challenge, had smirked. "Watch me." What had started as a game quickly spiraled out of control. Adrian hadn't expected Emma to agree to his advances, but she had surprised him. She was intelligent, witty, and kind, qualities that made her more appealing than he'd anticipated. Before long, she had agreed to date him. And when the time came, Adrian proposed, fully intending to go through with the bet. It wasn't about love, it was about winning. But Emma wasn't as naive as Adrian thought. She had her own reasons for saying yes, reasons she kept close to her heart. After the ceremony, the newlyweds mingled with guests at the reception. Adrian played his part flawlessly, charming everyone with his boyish grin and easy laugh. He posed for photos, clinked glasses during the toasts, and spun Emma around the dance floor like the perfect groom. But every so often, his gaze flickered to his teammates, who watched from the sidelines with barely contained smirks. "Enjoying yourself?" one of them asked as Adrian passed by. "More than you know," Adrian replied coolly, though the words rang hollow. Across the room, Emma was seated at a table with Lily, who had been her unwavering support throughout the whirlwind romance. "How are you holding up?" Lily asked, her concern evident. "I'm fine," Emma replied, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. "It's just one day. One very public, very complicated day," Lily said. She hesitated before adding, "You don't have to do this, you know. You could walk away." Emma shook her head. "Oh, this is my choice. Besides, I have a plan." Lily frowned. "A plan?" "Emma, this isn't some strategy game. You're marrying a man who—" "I know exactly who Adrian is," Emma interrupted, her voice firm. "And I know what I'm doing." Lily sighed, realizing she wouldn't get through to her. "Just promise me you'll protect yourself." Emma offered a small smile. I promise. As the evening wore on, Adrian found himself watching Emma more closely than he intended. She moved through the crowd with ease, her laughter genuine as she chatted with guests. She didn't seem fazed by the whispers or the judgmental glances. If anything, she seemed stronger than he'd given her credit for. At one point, she caught him staring. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Adrian felt an unfamiliar pang of guilt. He quickly masked it with a grin, raising his glass in a silent toast. Emma simply nodded before turning back to her conversation. By the time the reception ended, Adrian was exhausted. He had expected the day to feel triumphant, a victory in his ongoing game of life. But instead, he felt empty. Their honeymoon was just as calculated as the wedding, a carefully curated trip to a private island, designed more for public perception than genuine romance. Paparazzi captured photos of the couple lounging on the beach, sipping cocktails, and walking hand in hand. To the world, they were the picture of newlywed bliss. But behind closed doors, the cracks began to show. Adrian, accustomed to being the center of attention, struggled with Emma's calm indifference toward his fame. She wasn't impressed by his money, his connections, or his carefully constructed charm. She treated him like any other man, which both intrigued and frustrated him. One evening, as they sat on the terrace overlooking the ocean, Adrian couldn't resist asking, "Why did you say yes?" Emma glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Why did you ask?" For a moment, Adrian considered lying. He could have said something about love, about destiny, about how she was different from anyone he'd ever met. But something about Emma's steady gaze made him falter. "I don't know," he admitted. Emma's lips curved into a faint smile. "Maybe one day, you'll figure it out." As the weeks turned into months, Adrian found himself grappling with unfamiliar emotions. Emma's presence in his life wasn't what he had expected. She wasn't needy or clingy. She didn't fawn over him or try to change him. Instead, she challenged him, calling out his arrogance, questioning his motives, and refusing to let him skate by on charm alone. One night, after an argument about something trivial, Adrian snapped, "Why are you even here? Why didn't you just walk away?" Emma's eyes flashed with anger, but she kept her voice calm. "Because I see more in you than you see in yourself. But maybe I'm wrong." Her words struck a nerve, leaving Adrian unsettled. For the first time, he began to wonder if the bet, the thing that had driven him to pursue Emma in the first place, had been a mistake. Not because of the fallout if she found out, but because he was starting to care about her in ways he couldn't explain. But Emma had secrets of her own, secrets that would soon come to light and change everything Adrian thought he knew about her and himself. The tension between Adrian and Emma grew more complex as the months went by. Adrian couldn't shake the strange feeling that Emma was playing a game of her own, a quiet, calculated game that left him feeling exposed and unsure of himself. He'd gone into the marriage thinking he was in control, but now he wasn't so certain. For Emma, every passing day was a balancing act. She knew Adrian wasn't the man he pretended to be, and she wasn't the naive bride the public assumed her to be. But Emma had her reasons for staying, and those reasons went far beyond Adrian or his bet. It all came to a head during a charity gala hosted by Adrian's soccer club. The event was a glamorous affair, with the country's elite gathered in an opulent ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers and gold accents. Adrian, ever the golden boy, was the star attraction, mingling effortlessly with the guests. Emma, dressed in an elegant navy gown that hugged her curves, stayed by his side, her calm presence a stark contrast to the swirling chaos of the event. But beneath the polished surface, tension simmered. Adrian, one of his teammates called, clapping him on the back. It was Liam, one of the players who had been part of the original bet. "Looking sharp tonight. And Emma, you look stunning." "Thank you," Emma said politely, though her sharp eyes didn't miss the smirk Liam shot Adrian's way. Adrian's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming. "So," Liam continued, his voice just loud enough for Adrian to hear, "how's married life treating you? Still as exciting as the day you said I do?" Adrian forced a smile. "It's great, Liam. Thanks for asking." Liam chuckled, clearly enjoying himself. "You're a lucky man, Adrian. Emma's quite the catch." Emma glanced at Adrian, her expression unreadable. She could tell Liam's words were laced with mockery, but she chose not to acknowledge it. Instead, she excused herself to get a drink, leaving Adrian alone with his teammate. As soon as Emma was out of earshot, Liam leaned in. "How long are you going to keep this up, mate? The bet's over." "You've won." Adrian's stomach churned. He'd told himself the bet didn't matter anymore, but hearing it brought back the shame he'd tried to bury. "Drop it, Liam." "Oh, come on," Liam said with a grin. "It's just a bit of fun. Besides, I'm dying to know what happens when she finds out." "She won't," Adrian said through gritted teeth. "And if you say anything—" "Relax," Liam interrupted, holding up his hands. "Your secret's safe with me. For now." Adrian turned away, his mood darkening. Across the room, he spotted Emma, laughing softly with a group of guests. She looked radiant, her smile lighting up the room. And for the first time, Adrian felt a pang of fear, not because he might lose the bet, but because he might lose her. The ride home was quiet. Emma stared out the window, her hands folded in her lap. Adrian wanted to say something, to break the silence, but he couldn't find the words. When they arrived home, Emma headed straight for the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. "Emma," Adrian said, his voice tentative. "Are you okay?" She turned to face him, her expression calm but guarded. "I'm fine. Why do you ask? You seemed distant tonight." Emma studied him for a moment before replying. "I'm just tired, Adrian. It's been a long day." He wanted to press her, to ask if she'd overheard anything Liam had said. But he held back, unsure if he wanted to know the answer. The truth came out a week later. Adrian had just returned from a grueling practice session when he found Emma in the living room, sitting on the couch with a folder in her lap. She looked up as he entered, her eyes locking onto his. "We need to talk," she said, her tone calm but firm. Adrian froze. "About what?" Emma held up the folder. "About this." His heart sank. He didn't need to open it to know what it was. The bet, the emails, the texts between him and his teammates. She'd found everything. How did you?" "It doesn't matter how," Emma interrupted. "What matters is that you lied to me." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. "Emma, I can explain." "Don't," she said sharply. "I don't want your excuses. I want the truth. Why did you do it? Was this all just a joke to you?" "It started as a bet," Adrian admitted, his voice heavy with shame. "But it's not like that anymore. I swear." But Emma held up a hand to stop him. "You married me on a dare, Adrian. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" "How?" Her voice broke, and she looked away, tears welling in her eyes. Adrian took a step closer. "Emma, please. Let me make this right." She shook her head, her voice trembling. "You can't. You can't undo what you've done." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of the truth hanging between them. Then Emma rose to her feet, clutching the folder tightly. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice steady now. "I can't do this anymore." Adrian's chest tightened. "Emma, don't go. Please." But she didn't look back. She walked out the door, leaving Adrian alone with his guilt and regret. The days that followed were a blur for Adrian. He went through the motions, training, press events, public appearances, but his mind was consumed by thoughts of Emma. Her absence was like a hole in his chest, growing larger with each passing day. He tried calling her, but she didn't answer. He sent texts, emails, even handwritten letters, but they all went unanswered. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt powerless. He couldn't charm his way out of this. He couldn't win her back with empty promises or grand gestures. He had to face the truth. He'd hurt the one person who had seen through his facade and cared for him anyway. And he hated himself for it. Meanwhile, Emma was rebuilding her life. She stayed with Lily, who welcomed her with open arms. "You're stronger than this, Emma," Lily said one night as they sat on the couch. "You deserve so much better than him." Emma nodded, though her heart still ached. She'd fallen for Adrian despite knowing his flaws, and letting go of him was harder than she'd expected. But she knew she couldn't go back, not until he proved he was worthy of her trust. It was during this time that Emma's secret began to unravel. Adrian was cleaning out the bedroom closet one evening when he stumbled upon a box tucked away in the corner. Curious, he opened it, finding a stack of papers and photos inside. Most of them were old family photos, but one document caught his eye, a letter addressed to Emma from a law firm. As he read it, his heart sank. Emma wasn't just an ordinary woman. She was the heir to a multi-million-dollar estate, a fortune left to her by her late grandmother. The money had been tied up in legal battles for years, but now it was finally hers. And she hadn't told him. Adrian sat down, the letter trembling in his hands. Suddenly, everything made sense: Emma's calm confidence, her refusal to be intimidated by his fame or wealth. She hadn't needed him. She'd chosen him. And he'd thrown it all away. Adrian sat alone in the dimly lit bedroom, the letter clutched tightly in his hands. His mind raced with questions. Why hadn't Emma told him about her inheritance? Had she ever truly cared for him, or had their marriage been part of some larger plan of her own? The irony of the situation wasn't lost on him. He had started their relationship with a secret, and now he was discovering hers. But as he thought back to the months they had spent together, Adrian began to see things more clearly. Emma's calm composure, her confidence, her unwillingness to fawn over his wealth or fame, it all made sense now. She had never needed him. She had never been the desperate woman he assumed her to be. And yet she had chosen him, flaws and all. Adrian felt a pang of guilt so sharp it made him catch his breath. Emma had entered their marriage in good faith, despite everything. And he had betrayed her. The next morning, Adrian made a decision. He wasn't going to let Emma slip away without a fight. For the first time in his life, he wasn't motivated by pride or the need to win. He simply wanted to make things right. He started by reaching out to Lily. It wasn't easy. She had made her disdain for him abundantly clear during their brief encounters. But Adrian was determined. "Lily," he said when she picked up the phone, "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need your help." She sighed heavily. "What do you want, Adrian?" "I need to talk to Emma. I just need one chance to explain myself." "She doesn't want to see you," Lily said bluntly. "And honestly, I don't blame her. You hurt her more than you realize." "I know I did," Adrian admitted, his voice cracking. "And I hate myself for it. But please, just tell her I want to talk. If she says no, I'll respect that. I need to try." There was a long pause before Lily responded. "Fine. Tell her. But don't get your hopes up." Emma was sitting on the patio of Lily's home when her friend approached with the message. At first, she wanted to dismiss it outright. She didn't owe Adrian anything, not after everything he had done. But a small part of her was curious. What could he possibly say that would make up for his betrayal? "Do you want me to tell him no?" Lily asked. Emma hesitated, then shook her head. "Oh, I'll hear him out. But on my terms." A few days later, Adrian arrived at a small park where Emma had agreed to meet him. She sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree, her arms crossed as she watched him approach. Gone was the warmth he had come to associate with her. In its place was a guarded, almost distant expression. "Thank you for meeting me," Adrian said, sitting down beside her. "What do you want, Adrian?" Emma asked, her tone cool. "I don't have all day." He took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. "I wanted to apologize," he began. "For everything. For the bet, for lying to you, for—" Emma held up a hand to stop him. "I've heard enough apologies in my life, Adrian. What I want to know is why. Why did you do it?" Adrian looked down at his hands, shame washing over him. "Because I was an idiot," he admitted. "I was arrogant and selfish, and I thought everything was a game. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it." Emma's gaze softened slightly, but she didn't let her guard down. "And now that you know who I am, what I have, does that change anything?" Adrian shook his head. "Oh, Emma, I don't care about the money. I care about you. I didn't marry you for the right reasons, but somewhere along the way, I fell for you. And losing you made me realize how much you mean to me." Emma studied him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of deceit. Finally, she said, "I don't know if I can trust you again, Adrian. Trust isn't something you can just ask for. It has to be earned." "I know," Adrian said, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just tell me what I can do to make this right." Over the next few weeks, Adrian worked tirelessly to prove himself. He attended therapy sessions to address his issues with pride and selfishness, something he had never even considered before. He started volunteering at local community centers, using his platform to raise awareness for causes Emma cared about. And most importantly, he gave Emma the space she needed, respecting her boundaries and letting her come to him when she was ready. At first, Emma was skeptical. She had seen men make grand gestures before, only to revert to their old ways once the dust settled. But as time went on, she began to see real change in Adrian. He wasn't just saying the right things, he was doing them. One evening, Emma called him. "Are you free tomorrow?" she asked. "Of course," Adrian replied, his heart racing. "What do you need?" "There's something I want to show you," she said. "Meet me at the park." The next day, Adrian arrived at the park to find Emma waiting for him with a small box in her hands. She gestured for him to sit down beside her. "This belonged to my grandmother," Emma said, opening the box to reveal an old, tarnished locket. "She was the one who taught me what it means to be strong. To stand up for myself, even when it's hard." Adrian listened intently as Emma told him about her grandmother, about the lessons she had learned from her, and about the struggles she had faced growing up. For the first time, Adrian felt like he was truly seeing Emma, not as the woman he had married on a whim, but as the remarkable, resilient person she was. "I've been carrying this with me ever since she passed," Emma said, her voice soft. "And I want you to have it." Adrian's eyes widened. "Emma, I can't." "Yes, you can," she interrupted. "Because I see that you're trying. And because I believe people can change." Adrian took the locket, his hands trembling. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll treasure it." Their relationship didn't magically repair overnight, but it began to heal. They attended counseling sessions together, worked through their issues, and slowly rebuilt the trust that had been shattered. Adrian learned to be vulnerable, to admit his mistakes, and to truly value Emma for who she was. And Emma, in turn, allowed herself to forgive, not just Adrian but herself, for believing she could change him without his willingness. Months later, they renewed their vows in a small, private ceremony attended only by close friends and family. This time, there were no secrets, no ulterior motives, only love. As they exchanged rings, Adrian looked into Emma's eyes and said, "Thank you for giving me a second chance. I promise to spend the rest of my life earning it." Emma smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I promise to never let you forget it." Their story became an inspiration to others, a testament to the power of growth, forgiveness, and the strength it takes to rebuild after betrayal. And as they walked hand in hand into their new life together, they both knew that the challenges they had faced had made their love stronger than ever. Life settled into a new normal for Adrian and Emma. The media frenzy that had once surrounded them had faded into the background, replaced by quieter, more meaningful pursuits. Adrian found himself immersed in work that truly mattered, far removed from the superficial world of fame and endorsements. He started a mentorship program for underprivileged kids interested in soccer, using the sport to teach them discipline, teamwork, and self-confidence. Emma, meanwhile, continued to expand Renew, with the nonprofit reaching women across the country. It wasn't just about workshops anymore. It was about creating a lasting community where women felt empowered to take charge of their lives. Together, Adrian and Emma became a force for change, inspiring others with their journey of growth and redemption. But despite the progress they had made, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that he still had something to prove, not to the world, but to Emma. He wanted her to see just how much she had changed his life, how deeply he had come to value her strength, wisdom, and compassion. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a documentary about environmental conservation, Adrian turned to Emma. "What's something you've always wanted to do but never had the chance?" he asked. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Where did that come from?" "I've just been thinking," Adrian said. "You've given so much of yourself to everyone else. You deserve to do something for you." Emma considered his question for a moment. "Well, I've always wanted to travel. Not just for a week or two, but to really experience different cultures. To see the world." Adrian smiled. "Then let's do it." Emma laughed. "You can't just drop everything and travel the world, Adrian. You have commitments, responsibilities." "So do you," Adrian interrupted. But we'll figure it out. We'll plan it together. Emma hesitated, her practical side battling with the excitement bubbling in her chest. Are you serious? As serious as I've ever been, Adrian said. Emma, you've spent so much of your life putting others first. Let me do this for you. Over the next few months, Adrian and Emma began planning their trip. They decided to focus on destinations that aligned with their shared values, places where they could combine adventure with giving back. From volunteering at wildlife sanctuaries in Africa to supporting women's education initiatives in India, their journey became a mix of exploration and purpose. Their first stop was a small village in Kenya, where they volunteered at a school for girls. Emma led workshops on confidence and leadership, while Adrian organized soccer matches for the students. The experience was humbling and transformative, reminding them both of the privilege they carried and the responsibility that came with it. One evening, as they sat around a campfire with the other volunteers, Emma turned to Adrian. I've never felt more alive, she said, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Thank you for this. Adrian reached for her hand, his grip firm and steady. Thank you for believing in me. From Kenya, they traveled to Southeast Asia, where they immersed themselves in the vibrant cultures of Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. In a remote village in Cambodia, they met a young woman named Dara, who had started a cooperative to teach local women how to make and sell traditional crafts. Emma was deeply moved by Dara's story and decided to feature her in Renew's next campaign, highlighting the power of grassroots initiatives. Adrian, meanwhile, bonded with the village's children, teaching them soccer drills and learning their favorite games in return. The joy and laughter they shared reminded him of why he had fallen in love with the sport in the first place. One day, as they strolled through a bustling market in Hanoi, Adrian stopped in front of a jewelry stall. Among the trinkets and baubles was a simple silver bracelet engraved with the word resilience. He bought it on the spot and slipped it onto Emma's wrist. This is you, he said softly. Strong, steady, unbreakable. Emma's eyes welled with tears as she looked at him. You're not so bad yourself, you know. Their journey continued through Europe, where they visited historic landmarks, explored art galleries, and indulged in local cuisines. In Italy, they took a cooking class together, laughing as they tried, and failed, to master the art of making pasta from scratch. In France, they wandered through lavender fields, the scent lingering in the air as they talked about their dreams for the future. But it was in Iceland, standing beneath the shimmering northern lights, that Adrian finally found the words he had been searching for. Emma, he began, his voice barely audible over the wind. When I first met you, I didn't know what love was. I thought it was about grand gestures and perfect moments. But you've shown me that love is about so much more. It's about forgiveness, growth, and choosing each other every single day. Emma turned to face him, her breath visible in the cold night air. Adrian. Wait, he said, cutting her off. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I know we're already married, but I want to do this the right way this time. No lies, no bets, just us. He opened the box to reveal a delicate ring, its design inspired by the waves of the ocean. Will you marry me again? Emma's hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed beneath the dancing lights, their love stronger and more authentic than ever. Their renewed vows were exchanged in a small, intimate ceremony on a beach in Bali. This time, there were no cameras, no reporters, just their closest friends and family. Emma wore a simple white dress, her hair adorned with tropical flowers, while Adrian opted for a linen shirt and slacks. The ceremony was filled with laughter, tears, and heartfelt promises. I vow to love you, Adrian said, his voice steady, not for who I want you to be, but for who you are. And I vow to stand by you, Emma replied, not because I need you, but because I choose you. As they kissed to seal their vows, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the ocean. It was a moment of pure, unfiltered joy, a reminder that even the most broken beginnings could lead to beautiful endings. When they returned home, Emma and Adrian continued their work with renewed passion. Adrian's mentorship program expanded, reaching thousands of kids across the country. Emma's nonprofit grew into an international movement, empowering women to reclaim their lives and rewrite their stories. Their journey wasn't without challenges, but they faced each one together, their bond unshakable. And as the years went by, they built a life filled with love, purpose, and gratitude, a life they never could have imagined when their story first began. Because sometimes, the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most extraordinary endings. Life after their second wedding was a whirlwind of purpose and joy. Adrian and Emma found themselves at the center of a growing movement for forgiveness, second chances, and personal transformation. Their story inspired countless people around the world, and they were often invited to speak at conferences and events. Despite their busy schedules, they made it a priority to carve out time for themselves. Their relationship was no longer about grand gestures or public appearances, it was about the quiet moments that no one else saw. Whether it was cooking dinner together, going for evening walks, or simply sitting in silence with a cup of tea, these moments became the foundation of their new life. One afternoon, as Adrian returned home from a soccer mentorship session, he found Emma in the garden, tending to the flowers she had planted months earlier. She looked up as he approached, her face lighting up with a smile. "You're home early," she said, brushing dirt off her hands. "I finished up quicker than I thought," Adrian replied, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "How's the garden coming along?" Emma gestured to the rows of flowers and vegetables. "Slowly but surely. It's amazing what a little patience and care can do." Adrian chuckled. "You're talking about the garden, but I think you're secretly talking about us." Emma grinned. "Maybe." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow over the yard. Then Adrian spoke, his tone thoughtful. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" "All the time," Emma said. "Sometimes it feels like a different life." "It was," Adrian said. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Adrian reached for Emma's hand. "I've been thinking," he said. "We've spent so much time giving back to others, but there's one person I feel like I haven't fully made things right with." Emma turned to him, curiosity in her eyes. "Who?" "You," Adrian said softly. "I know we've rebuilt a lot, but I feel like I've never truly thanked you for believing in me. For giving me a second chance when I didn't deserve it." Emma squeezed his hand. "Adrian, you've shown me every day how much you've changed. That's more than enough." "But I want to do more," Adrian said. "You've given me so much, your forgiveness, your love, your trust. I want to give something back." Emma tilted her head, her smile teasing. "And what do you have in mind?" Adrian hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. "I've been working on this for a while," he said, handing it to her. Emma opened the notebook, her brow furrowing as she flipped through the pages. It was filled with sketches and notes, designs for a new project Adrian had been planning in secret. "It's a community center," Adrian explained. "A place where kids can come to play soccer, get tutoring, and learn life skills. But it's not just for them, it's for families too. Workshops, support groups, resources for parents. Everything we wished we had growing up." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him. "Adrian, this is incredible. I wanted to create something that would last," Adrian said. "Something that would make a real difference. And I wanted to do it with you." Emma threw her arms around him, her voice choked with emotion. "I love it. And I love you." The months that followed were some of the busiest of their lives. Adrian and Emma threw themselves into the project, working with architects, community leaders, and volunteers to bring the vision to life. The center, which they named Horizons, quickly became a beacon of hope for the community. On opening day, hundreds of people gathered to celebrate the new facility. There were speeches, performances by local kids, and a ribbon-cutting ceremony that left everyone in tears. As Adrian and Emma stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd, Adrian took the microphone. "This center is more than just a building," he said. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we come together, when we forgive, and when we choose to believe in each other. None of this would have been possible without Emma. She's the heart and soul of everything we do, and I'm lucky every day to have her by my side." The crowd erupted into applause, and Emma wiped away a tear as she hugged Adrian. Together, they had created something extraordinary, a legacy that would impact generations to come. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. A few weeks after the center's opening, Emma began feeling unwell. At first, she dismissed it as exhaustion from their hectic schedule. But as the days went on, the symptoms became harder to ignore: fatigue, dizziness, and an unrelenting headache. Adrian insisted she see a doctor, and after a series of tests, they received news that shook them to their core. Emma had a benign brain tumor that required immediate surgery. Though the prognosis was good, the risk was still significant. "I'm scared," Emma admitted one night as they lay in bed, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian held her tightly, his own fear threatening to overwhelm him. "We'll get through this," he said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know." In the days leading up to the surgery, Adrian became Emma's rock. He canceled all his commitments, spending every moment by her side. They talked about everything: memories, dreams, and even the possibility of what might happen if the worst came to pass. "If something goes wrong," Emma said one evening, her voice trembling, "promise me you'll keep going. Promise me you'll keep living." Adrian's heart ached, but he nodded. "I promise. But you're going to be fine, Emma. You have to be." The day of the surgery was the longest of Adrian's life. He paced the hospital waiting room, his mind racing with worry. Lily sat beside him, offering quiet support, but nothing could ease the knot in his stomach. Hours later, the surgeon emerged with a tired but relieved smile. "The surgery went well," he said. "Emma's in recovery now. She's going to be okay." Adrian felt a wave of relief so powerful it brought him to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Thank you." Emma's recovery was slow but steady. Adrian was by her side every step of the way, helping her through the difficult days and celebrating the small victories. The experience brought them even closer, reminding them of how precious their time together truly was. As Emma regained her strength, she returned to her work with renewed determination. She became a vocal advocate for healthcare reform, using her platform to raise awareness about the importance of early detection and accessible treatment. And through it all, Adrian was her biggest supporter, standing by her side as she continued to inspire others with her resilience and courage. Years later, as they sat on the porch of their home, watching their children play in the yard, Adrian turned to Emma with a smile. "You know," he said, "I used to think I knew what success looked like. Fame, fortune, trophies, all of it. But none of it compares to this." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "This is success," she said. "Love, family, and making a difference. It's all we ever needed." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over their little corner of the world, Adrian and Emma knew they had found something far greater than they had ever imagined. A life built on love, forgiveness, and the unshakable bond they had fought so hard to create. Life moved forward with an unshakable rhythm for Adrian and Emma. They had faced storms, celebrated victories, and now found themselves living in a kind of harmony neither had ever thought possible. Their days were filled with purpose, managing the Horizon Center, raising their 2 young children, and finding joy in the small moments of life. But just when they thought their lives had settled, another unexpected challenge appeared, this time in the form of a man from Adrian's past. It happened on a quiet afternoon at Horizons. Emma was overseeing a workshop for single mothers, while Adrian was out on the soccer field, coaching a group of teenagers. A car pulled into the center's parking lot, and a man stepped out. He was tall, with a rough, unkempt appearance, his face weathered by years of hardship. Adrian recognized him immediately. "Liam." Adrian froze, memories of their past flooding back like a tidal wave. Liam, his old teammate, the instigator of the infamous bet that had nearly destroyed his marriage. The man who had sold their story to the tabloids. What was he doing here? Liam approached, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Adrian," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I need to talk to you." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You've got some nerve showing up here after everything you did?" "I know," Liam said, his gaze dropping to the ground. "And I don't blame you for hating me. But I've changed. I swear. I need your help." Adrian crossed his arms, skeptical. Why should I believe anything you say? Liam hesitated, then pulled out his phone and showed Adrian a photo. It was of a young boy, no older than 7, with Liam's eyes and smile. This is my son, Noah, Liam said. He's sick, and I can't afford the treatment he needs. Adrian's anger softened, replaced by a flicker of compassion. What does this have to do with me? I've been following what you and Emma have been doing with Horizons, Liam admitted. I've seen how much you've changed, how much good you're doing. And I thought, maybe you could help me give Noah a second chance? Adrian didn't answer right away. He needed time to process Liam's sudden reappearance and his plea for help. That evening, as he and Emma sat on the porch after putting the kids to bed, Adrian told her what had happened. Emma listened intently, her expression thoughtful. Do you believe him? She asked. I don't know, Adrian admitted. But if there's even a chance he's telling the truth, I feel like I have to help. For Noah's sake. Emma nodded. Then we'll help him. But on our terms. The next day, Adrian invited Liam to the center to discuss a plan. Liam arrived looking nervous but hopeful. He told Adrian and Emma about Noah's condition, leukemia, and the treatment he needed. Liam's voice broke as he described the fear of losing his son, and for the first time, Adrian saw the man behind the bravado, the scared, desperate father doing whatever it took to save his child. Emma proposed setting up a fundraiser through Horizons, with all proceeds going toward Noah's medical expenses. We'll be transparent about where the money is going, she said. And we'll make sure Noah gets the care he needs. Liam's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, he said. I don't deserve this, but thank you. Adrian nodded, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. We're not doing this for you, Liam. We're doing it for Noah. The fundraiser was a massive undertaking, but Emma and Adrian threw themselves into it with the same passion they brought to everything else in their lives. They organized events, reached out to donors, and used their platform to spread the word. The highlight of the campaign was a charity soccer match, featuring Adrian's old teammates and some of the kids from Horizons. The event drew a huge crowd, with people eager to support the cause. Adrian, who hadn't played in a professional match since retiring, laced up his cleats and took to the field with a mix of nerves and excitement. As the game began, he felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the joy of competition. But this time, it wasn't about winning, it was about making a difference. Emma watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling with pride as Adrian scored goal after goal. She could see how much he had grown, how far they had both come since the days when their lives had been ruled by ego and insecurity. By the end of the match, they had raised more than enough money for Noah's treatment. A few weeks later, Liam called Adrian with an update. The treatment's working, he said, his voice thick with gratitude. Noah's getting better. Adrian felt a wave of relief. That's great news, Liam. I'm happy for you. Liam hesitated, then added, I owe you more than I can ever repay. If there's anything I can do, anything at all, just say the word. Adrian thought for a moment. There is one thing, he said. Be the father Noah deserves. Don't let him down. I won't, Liam promised. Helping Liam and Noah became a turning point for Adrian and Emma. It reminded them of why they had started their work in the first place, to create a world where everyone had a chance to heal, grow, and thrive. Their experiences also deepened their bond. They had faced challenges that would have broken most couples, but they had come out stronger, their love unshakable. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching their children play, Emma turned to Adrian with a smile. Do you ever wonder how different our lives would be if we hadn't taken that chance on each other? All the time, Adrian said, but I wouldn't change a thing. Every mistake, every struggle, it all led us here. Emma nodded, her eyes shining with love. Here is pretty perfect. As the sun set and their children's laughter filled the air, Adrian and Emma knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more triumphs, and more lessons to learn. But as long as they faced them together, they knew they could handle anything. Because in the end, it wasn't about where they started, it was about where they were going. And together, they were unstoppable. Months passed, and life returned to a steady rhythm for Adrian and Emma. Their work with Horizons continued to thrive, and their relationship grew stronger with each passing day. The fundraiser for Noah had been a success, and Liam had kept his word, staying out of trouble and devoting himself to being the father his son deserved. But just as they began to feel a sense of calm, a new challenge emerged, one that would test their resilience in ways they never anticipated. One evening, Emma received a phone call that left her visibly shaken. Adrian, who was helping the kids with their homework, noticed her pale face as she hung up the phone. "Emma?" he asked gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What's wrong?" It's my father," she said, her voice trembling. "He wants to see me." Adrian frowned. Emma had never spoken much about her father, except to say that he had left her family when she was a child. The pain of his abandonment had been a shadow over her life, one she had worked hard to overcome. "What did he say?" Adrian asked cautiously. "He's sick," Emma replied, her eyes filling with tears. "He's in hospice care and doesn't have much time left. He said he wants to make amends." Adrian's heart ached for her. "What do you want to do?" Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I don't know. Part of me wants to see him, to hear what he has to say. But another part of me is so angry. He abandoned us, Adrian. He left my mom to raise me on her own, and now he expects forgiveness?" Adrian nodded, understanding her conflict. "You don't have to decide right now. Take your time." Over the next few days, Emma wrestled with her emotions. She sought advice from Lily, who encouraged her to do what felt right for her own healing. Adrian, meanwhile, supported her without pushing her in either direction. Eventually, Emma made her decision. She would see her father, not for his sake, but for her own. She wanted closure, and she knew she couldn't get that without facing him. Adrian offered to go with her, but Emma insisted on going alone. "This is something I need to do by myself," she said. The hospice facility was quiet and unassuming, tucked away in a peaceful corner of the city. Emma's heart pounded as she approached her father's room, her mind racing with memories of the man who had once been her hero before he disappeared from her life. When she stepped inside, she was struck by how frail he looked. The man lying in the bed was a shadow of the father she remembered, thin, pale, and aged far beyond his years. "Emma," he said softly, his voice weak but filled with emotion. "You came?" Emma stood frozen for a moment before pulling up a chair and sitting beside his bed. "I didn't come for you," she said, her tone firm. "I came for me." Her father nodded, a sad smile on his lips. "I understand." For the next hour, he told her everything. Why he had left, the mistakes he had made, and the regrets that had haunted him ever since. He didn't make excuses or ask for forgiveness. He simply told the truth. Emma listened in silence, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and a small, flickering spark of compassion. When he finished, she took a deep breath and said, "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I can let go of the anger. I can let go of the pain." Her father's eyes filled with tears. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." As she left the hospice that day, Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't complete closure, but it was a start. When Emma returned home, Adrian was waiting for her on the porch. She collapsed into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "It's done," she whispered. "I saw him. I said what I needed to say." Adrian held her tightly, letting her cry. "I'm proud of you," he said. "That took so much strength." Over the next few weeks, Emma visited her father a few more times, each visit bringing a little more peace. When he passed away, she felt a bittersweet sense of relief that she had faced her past and found a way to move forward. The experience with her father inspired Emma to start a new initiative through Horizons, a program for individuals seeking to rebuild broken family relationships. It wasn't about forcing reconciliation, but about providing the tools and support needed to navigate complex emotions and find healing. The program was an instant success, drawing participants from all walks of life. Emma and Adrian both played active roles, sharing their own experiences and learning from the stories of others. One day, as they were wrapping up a session, a young woman approached Emma. She looked nervous but determined, clutching a worn photo in her hands. "Mrs. Matthews," she said, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to thank you. Your story gave me the courage to reach out to my mother. We haven't spoken in years, but We're meeting for coffee next week." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she hugged the young woman. "That's incredible. I'm so proud of you." Moments like these reminded Emma and Adrian why they had chosen this path. Their work wasn't just about helping others, it was about healing themselves in the process. As their lives continued to unfold, Adrian and Emma faced their share of ups and downs, but they faced them together. Their love had been forged in fire, and it only grew stronger with time. Years later, as they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, they reflected on everything they had been through, the challenges, the triumphs, and the moments that had defined their journey. "I never could have imagined this life," Adrian said as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." Emma smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Neither would I. You're my greatest challenge and my greatest blessing." Adrian chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their home, Adrian and Emma knew that their story was far from over. They had built a life filled with love, purpose, and resilience, a life that would inspire others for generations to come. Because in the end, it wasn't about where they started. It was about where they were going. And together, they were unstoppable.